Okay, so it's been quite the week in South African football, especially over there, especially for Mamelodi Sundowns. For those who don't know, Coach Rulani has been moved aside. If you don't know by now, then I don't know what media you've been consuming, because it's been everywhere. But we're still seeing the fallout from the move. We're still seeing a lot of different pieces falling into place, some falling out of place. We've had people leaving and resigning. We've had people questioning their futures with Mamelodi Sundowns. And it seems that this conversation goes a lot deeper than just between the coach and management. The big story that came out from yesterday is that Coach Steve Komphela has made his way back to Mamelodi Sundowns. Now, Coach Steve had left, for those who don't know the story, Coach Steve had left the beginning of last season to go and coach Marawa Swallows. He had cited, there were rumors, and he had cited some things going on in the background at Mamelodi Sundowns, seemingly that Coach Rulani Mokwena allegedly had a lot of power in that place, and the situation had just become untenable. It was a thing that they couldn't continue doing, and he chose to rather leave and go pursue his own ends. I mean, Coach Steve himself is a very experienced PSL coach, and as you know, with a lot of the more experienced PSL coaches, they don't struggle for a job. Even when he left to go to Marawa Swallows, we all know what happened to Marawa Swallows, and we all know that Coach Steve had already jumped ship way before everything crashed, way before the proverbial something hit the fan. So Coach Steve then left Marawa Swallows, found his way back to Golden Arrows, a team that he had been at previously before, and we were wondering how long he was going to stay there. We were wondering what his relationship with Mabuti Kanyeza is. But now it seems that the moment that Coach Rulani left Mamelodi Sundowns, it opened up a pathway for Coach Steve to come back very quickly back into that club, which, number one, makes me wonder about PSL contracts, because this is now his third team, I'd say, in 6 months. You would say his fourth team in a season that he has been at, and it doesn't seem like there's any dust being kicked up about that contract situation, but I guess they sorted that out. We're hearing about Mamelodi Sundowns undertaking in contracts to compensate whoever intermediaries and, in other cases, other teams are in these deals. But Coach Steve has come back. He is set to come and be the head coach again, or first team coach again, which is basically one of the assistants, and he will be assisting the first team according to the statement released by Mamelodi Sundowns. The other big change that had happened was Umanqoba is coming back to take over the team and become the head coach, most probably interim. But there's been a statement released by his agent saying that, listen, he's not coming back as a head coach. He's not going to be an assistant coach. They're working on changing what Umanqoba is going to be at the club. So they're going to change what Umanqoba is going to be at the club. It's new to South African football, according to his agent. Now, this, of course, there's a couple of questions that come into this, and I did a video previously speaking about the Rulani side of this, but let's speak about Mamelodi Sundowns' future. It's very interesting to see Coach Steve coming back, because that shows that maybe Coach Rulani was granted a lot of power within Mamelodi Sundowns. Coach Rulani came in and made some coaching changes, bringing in Michael Loftman, bringing in some coaches from his Black Poison team. Steve Komphela was moved aside. He made some transfers for Lodge. He made some transfers for Kemang, a bunch of other players, Abo Zungu, right? And you could tell that he had a lot of sway in the team. You could tell that the 12 years that he'd spent at the team meant a lot to the type of things he could do when he was given this new contract and he was promoted, right? But it also seems as though management, although giving him that power, weren't trusting of him. That is why Umanqoba was kept and was there in case something happened, in case of emergencies. You look at Coach Manqoba, who's somebody who's there, who can lead the team, who's been there for a very long time, and he seems to be a company man. He seems to be somebody who will go with the club, who will listen to instructions and understands the hierarchy that the club has. So from the onset, it brings about two things management-wise. It seems that Rulani was given a lot of control by management, but it also seems that management was trying to make sure that should something happen, there are people there stationed. It also, in my eyes, comes off as Coach Rulani having being the last transitional coach. Right, it felt as though they were going to give him this time, the 2-3 years he was going to be there, whether he goes off to another club, whether they mutually part ways as the road went on. Management was looking to move him on, which then makes some very interesting, which makes the situation very interesting, right? It seems to me that the situation at Mamelodi Sundowns right now is that Kloppy is taking control. I think Kloppy is taking control, and my prediction is that Manqoba is going to become more of a Trotmoloto type of role. He's going to play that type of role at Mamelodi Sundowns. Trotmoloto is currently advisor to the chairperson. It's a role that lies within the chairperson's office, and he is seen as the old head who can advise the newer chairperson, who can advise on what Mamelodi Sundowns' play is going to be, what Mamelodi Sundowns' play, tradition, culture, and all of those things are, and be really the vocal voice. My prediction is that Manqoba is going to take up that role now within Mamelodi Sundowns, having been a coach that had been there pretty much since Pitso came in. He was one of Pitso's first changes that he made in terms of coaches. He came inside and he was the right-hand man, took over in the co-coach dynamic, even though he had the final say on decisions, and sort of sat back. You know, I think I respect Manqoba in this situation for seeing that everything is falling apart. Let me just sit back. If you remember correctly, Manqoba was all set to leave. There were rumors that there were plenty of teams who were courting coach to come and be the head coach. And there were rumors that he was close to leaving. Now, this is where my conspiracy theory comes in. I think they sat him down and said, listen, let's let this play out. And I need you to stay where you will take a bigger role within what we're going to do. At times, we're going to ask you to step in and be the caretaker because there's a big transition coming for Mamelodi Sundowns in the future. Now, I think that future came a lot closer, came a lot nearer, a lot earlier than what they were expecting. So I think that was the plan with the Coach Manqoba, maybe even with Steve. That, you know what, Steve, we understand and respect you choosing to leave on your own accord and not necessarily being fired, choosing to get out of the firing line. And maybe because that relationship still exists, they brought him back in. I think this team, going back in my conspiracy theory, if you remember correctly, Kloppy, Chairman Kloppy, was meant to be leaving. He had taken out a statement and said that I am going to look after some of the family's interests elsewhere in the world. So he would be taking a little bit of a reduced role as chairperson, right? And I viewed this as him exiting. My theory is that he had sat down with his father, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, and he had told him that, listen, this team is still your shadow. This team is still living, I'm still living in your shadow. This team still has your handprint. It has your coaches. It has the way you used to run, where your coach has a direct line to the chairperson. It has very little structure outside of the coach. And if you keep stepping in, it's going to make problems. I think Rulani's chance that was given here was a compromise. I think he was brought in and promoted by the big man himself up there, Dr. Motsepe. I think he had a big role in making sure that Rulani was promoted. Because from his point of view, he's done the work. He brought in Pitso. Pitso made sure that the transition is smooth from him to Manqoba. They made sure that the transition from Manqoba to Rulani, maybe not as smooth, but he had to step in to ensure the line that he had created carries on at Mamelodi Sundowns. And here comes Chairman Kloppy, who also now, as chairperson, has to put his own spin on the team. You know, he's done so much great work in expanding the Sundowns ladies side, giving them more money. He's done work in making sure that maybe in the next few years, Mamelodi Sundowns can still spend as much as they spend, but make it more sustainable. More sponsors are coming in. We're seeing Red Bull. We're seeing them have a funeral cover through Sanlam, for example. So I think what happened was that he needed to come in and stamp his authority on the team, and maybe his dad was in the way in a sense. And part of what happened was he thought to himself, you know what, I need to have full control of this team, or I'm leaving. We've seen him be a little bit more vocal. We've seen him really step into the role, a differing thing to what he had put out in that statement. And I think Abo Fleming, his hires, I think that he's looking for new wise men in the vein of Trotmoloto. I'm thinking that Manqoba is going to be the person who steps in there. And that is what is going to be happening at Mamelodi Sundowns going forward. So this transition period is going to be very interesting. But what you can see is it looks like Mamelodi Sundowns had set themselves up for if this relationship was going to end. I think, again, Coach Rulani overplayed his hand. And maybe it came to the fore that, you know, Fleming is Kloppy's man, Chairman Kloppy's man. Rulani, you are my father's man. And now when we get into a crossroads situation where I have to decide where this club is going to go, I'm going to pick my own future over what has passed. So that is my thoughts on this Sundown situation. I predict Manqoba is going to become the new Trotmoloto, an advisor to the chairperson, and somebody who you can call in when things are looking a little bit wonky at Mamelodi Sundowns, when they're having a tough change. You can bring in somebody who understands the club, who was part of the success, who will listen to management, or at least understand the hierarchy, and can be called in at any time. Think of him like Jip Heynckes over at Bayern Munich, where Jip Heynckes was always brought in when things were going wrong. When there was a transition, he even won a treble right before Pep came in, for example. But also think of him as an advisor up there with Chairman Kloppy, who sits maybe with him, who sits with Fleming as well, the technical director. Because remember, Fleming is also 2 years into Mamelodi Sundowns. I don't think he can be expected to understand the culture and expected to know the club as deeply. So I think Coach Manqoba is going to play an incredible role going forward at Mamelodi Sundowns, and I think he is going to be the custodian of Mamelodi Sundowns' cultures, traditions, recent winning ways, and make sure that they stay on track, make sure that his advice at least doesn't take Mamelodi Sundowns, well, allows Mamelodi Sundowns not to go too far from the vision of Mamelodi Sundowns, from Shushan and Piano, and from their history. So very, very, very interesting things that are going to happen in Mamelodi Sundowns. A question that we all have is the new coach. Is it going to be somebody from SA? As Mamelodi Sundowns in their statement when releasing Rulani said that they have a commitment to South African players and coaches. Is it going to be somebody from outside? And that person from outside, are they going to play, how much control are they going to have in terms of what they can do at Mamelodi Sundowns? So will they have how much of a say will they have in transfers? How much of a say will they have in implementing the vision of the club? Because now Mamelodi Sundowns is going to move into a place where the club decides a lot of what is happening, signings, style of play to a degree, and the coaches are going to merely be tools that are coming in to make sure they can make this team run. I think gone are the days where Mamelodi Sundowns will have coaches coming in and, you know, creating chameleons, coaches coming in and doing diamonds, coaches coming in and having enough control to overhaul, right, or expand on the previous coach's stuff to the degree that they could expand on right now. I don't think a coach is going to come in and be able to change the way they play as much as Pitso had responsibility for that, as Manqoba and Rulani had responsibility for that. I think coaches are going to need to be people that are going to work with what they have, either be super adaptable, right, and be able to take anything you give them and make it work, similar to a Carlo Ancelotti, or they're going to have to be coaches that are so in line with what Mamelodi Sundowns does and plays, that the players that they're going to have at their disposal will be players that almost fit their style of play. And if they're not the players that they want completely, they'll be very close. So Sundowns is in a big transition period right now. I think the infighting, the civil war that was happening inside is done. And we're now going to see how Mamelodi Sundowns goes forward in terms of how they run this team. But for all intents and purposes, this is Chairman Kloppy's team now.